Hey, my name is Sam Washington. I'm a software engineer with 12 years of experience building applications and around 10 years of experience deploying to production. I got my start with C++, originally just to choose a language, and I had this book called Object-Oriented Programming with C++. It was really interesting to me because it introduced me to the idea not only of what you could do with a programming language, how you could compile a program and actually run it on your own computer, but also the idea of object-oriented programming and just the ways that you might consider structuring your thoughts on purpose. Eventually, I wanted something that felt a bit more expressive, so I switched to web technologies. One of my relatives was working on a small business and hired me as an intern, changing originally just the markup and the styling with HTML and CSS. Eventually, I got a little bit more into the logic, using jQuery to actually change the elements on the page, and then moving on to PHP and MySQL to understand more of the backend. And this was a great opportunity for me because it got me into the idea of actually intentionally designing something so that people could use it. In college, I got more into architecture, working on my own PHP framework for around 4 years, iterating over that multiple different times, eventually settling on the latest version for around 2 years. Concurrently, while I was working on it, I was working at the university and got hired as a web developer, originally just changing HTML and CSS and JavaScript, but eventually implementing more features with PHP and some Cold Fusion. With PHP, the frameworks that we used were Drupal and Symfony, and I got a decent amount of experience implementing different design patterns with those. Right after college, I got hired at a company that was business to business retail publishing. There, I worked mostly on WordPress and Drupal sites at the beginning, and then moved on to a cool project that was making marketing sites with React. And that was the first hands-on experience that wasn't just a side project with React. I had worked with React for maybe a year or two before, but actually being able to work with it at a company was really exciting to me because it was this new framework to me, and I really enjoyed it. Right after that, I moved on to a company that was e-commerce based. They had warehousing, fraud detection, an internal tool, and I got to work on projects making the site responsive and accessible. It was a pretty mature site, so those were actually decent efforts. I also had a decent amount of exposure to multiple different experienced developers who could give me some guidance and introduce me to the way that the industry worked. I was there for around 2.5 years before I left to figure out the next chapter of my life. In 2022, I worked as a senior software engineer at a real estate company with React. The last half of 2022, I worked with a mid-sized company with React and TypeScript on Gatsby. Now I'm looking for a place to stay for a while. As always, I'm looking to contribute to an ecosystem of sustainable growth and development, and I'm really excited for the next opportunity.